Hey everyone, I'm Joe Sasto. I'm a chef here in California, and today I'm excited because I'm teaming up with the Feed and family-owned Pearls Olives on their new Dream Olive initiative. I'm going to share with you my recipe for olives in Orecchiette using these California-grown ripe black olives as a ragu to pair with my pasta. I want to inspire everyone to get into the kitchen, to cook, and most importantly to use the hashtag Dream Olive, because every time you do, Pearls is going to donate a meal to a family in need, an incredibly important cause right now. So let's get started. First things first here is making our pasta dough. I'm making pasta from scratch here with a very simple flour and water dough. I'm using a double ground semolina flour. It's called nata. A little bit of salt, and then I was actually inspired. All of these Pearls black ripe olives are grown here in California. If you've ever been to an olive farm, you see all these beautiful green olive leaves. And so I'm adding a little bit of spinach powder here to my flour, and that's going to give the pasta this beautiful green tint, and the little orecchiette are kind of going to look like olive leaves. So bringing the olives and the leaves back together, making a great thing even better. So first things first here, mixing together our flour, our powder, and there are many ways to color pasta. You can use chlorophyll powder, you can use spinach powder, you can use droplets. I would not recommend using food coloring. I would keep it all natural. I'm gonna work right here on my tabletop. You can do this in a bowl or in a stand mixer, but I'm gonna just dump out all of my flour, make a little well here in the center, and that's going to catch my water as I pour it in, and we're gonna mix this all together by hand. I'm going to pour in my warm water, and then just using my fingers slowly incorporate the flour into the center until the dough starts to come together. You can use a machine for this with the dough hook, but there's something nostalgic about making it by hand. You feel more connected to the food and the final product. Plus it's a little fun. So as a paste begins to form, that's when you can start incorporating all of the flour from the outside and start to knead this together. Now it looks like one shaggy mass right now, but just trust me, as you work this together, it'll turn into a smooth, supple pasta dough. Kneading this by hand takes anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how efficient you can be, but the time goes by pretty fast. And then depending on the flour that you're using, the humidity in the kitchen or the area that you're working in, you may need a little less or a little more moisture in here. Pasta dough recipes are notorious for being different depending on where you are, and if needed, you could always just spray a little more water onto the table, and that'll incorporate itself into the dough. You don't want this to be sticky by any means, but at the same time, not dry and crumbly either. So as I'm kneading here, I'm folding the dough back over itself to the center point using the palm of my hand and giving it a quarter turn. And you can really start to find emotion and rhythm once you get into it. But the important thing to keep in mind whenever you're making fresh pasta like this is to really make sure you take your time with the kneading process. Don't rush it, don't go too quickly. Then this process becomes almost therapeutic. Settling into the pasta table and just kneading the dough. So I've been kneading the dough here for about 20 minutes. It's nice and soft and smooth. We can see here on the top, forms into a nice ball. There's no rough edges. There's a little bit of spring back from my finger, a tiny bit of tackiness, which means we form some nice gluten. It's not sticky at all, but I'm gonna wrap it up here, some reusable plastic wrap, nice and tight to protect it from drying out. My dough is done. I'm gonna set this aside, then we're gonna get started on our ragu. So I'm Italian, my family's from Italy, and so is the Musco family. They've been growing olives and been olive experts since the 18th century. It's still a family-run operation today, and they believe in what I do, supporting the local community, local farms. That's why all of their ripe black olives are grown here in California. I wanted to use these specifically for this recipe to support those farmers. Now for this, I'm actually going to save the olive brine that they're sitting in. reserve that for later. So I really like these pearls, 100% ripe black olives, because they come in all different sizes. But this recipe is great because it doesn't call for a particular size. We're gonna go through and chop all of these up. The olives are already pitted. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You kind of want that rustic chop, all different sizes and shapes. If you run into the problem, you're all sliding all over the cutting board. Sometimes I like to just crush them, break them up with my fingers. Then that way, nobody's rolling off the edge. Now I'm just gonna take all of my olives here, set them aside in a bowl. We're gonna get started on our sofrito next. The sofrito is going to be the base for our olive ragu. The sofrito might sound complicated, but it's not. It's just some cooked down vegetables, a bunch of aromatics that's gonna act as the base for a ragu. Sofrito can be anything, but in this case, we're using our shallots, garlic, and leeks. I have a saute pan over medium-low heat. I'm going to add olive oil, and we're gonna cook these low and slow. Really focusing on melting down our aromatics here. We don't want any color on them. We're gonna cook them to bring out all of those flavors and really let them bloom. You know, one of the family founders of Pearls had this saying. He would say that he always liked to make a great thing even better. I could totally relate to that. I think that's why adding these olives to the recipe are really going to elevate our ragu. Now that our shallots, leek, and garlic have cooked down, we're going to continue layering all of the flavors in here. We have our oregano and chili paste. If you don't want it spicy, you could leave the chili paste out. A little bit of tomato paste as well. That's going to give it some depth of flavor and richness. And we're just going to cook these down in for a couple more minutes. Really let them bloom and toast in our aromatic oil. Now the vegetables have melted, everything is bloomed. This is when I like to add a little bit of salt. Tons of smells and flavors coming out of the pot here. And we're ready for our next addition. I have a little bit of red wine here. That's gonna act as our acid, really kind of like bringing out a lot of those buttery notes that are found in black olives. We can turn the heat up a little bit higher. So we wanna reduce this wine down, cook off that alcohol. And then I have my reserved olive brine here. I'm gonna add that as well to reinforce the olive flavor. Give that a quick stir. Now we wait. So now that this is cooked down and reduced, when we drag a spoon through it, you can see the bottom of the pan there. Now we're going to add our ripe black olives that we had chopped up from earlier. Turn the heat down to low. And just gently stir these all in. And then last but not least, right as this is finishing cooking, we're gonna add the juice of half an orange. That's gonna sweeten things up, add a nice bright note. Oranges and olives, one of my favorite combinations. So our dough has been resting for a few hours now. The gluten has had a chance to relax, nice and soft. I'm going to cut off a small piece of dough, keep the rest wrapped up, and then I'm going to roll this into one long pasta snake. So orecchiette means little ears. I'm using just a butter knife here, and applying gentle pressure, you're able to stretch the dough out and then form it, flipping it, invert it over your thumb, and you have all of this great texture on the inside of the pasta that's going to help catch that olive ragu. Okay, I'm bringing a pot of water here to a boil. I always like to wait till right before it's about to boil to salt it, so that way it doesn't reduce while it's sitting on the stove. And in goes our pasta. We're gonna let this pasta cook for a couple minutes till it's about 90% done, what we Italians like to call al dente. Then we're gonna cook it the last 10% in the olive ragu, bringing the whole thing together. So right into that same pan, Some of that starchy cooking water from the pasta is gonna help everything emulsify. Over medium-high heat, we're gonna bring the two together. All those little cups from the Orecchiette are gonna hold those chunks of black olive. It's a perfect shape for these olives. Last thing here, right before we take it off the heat, some of our fresh chopped parsley, our chives. Give that a good stir. Little black pepper here, kind of finish it off. And I want to add just a little more orange juice right at the end. Just gonna add a little bit of our Parmigiano Reggiano. And then we just need our final taste checks. That's fantastic. All right, last thing here, a little orange zest to finish, kind of carrying that bright orange flavor through the whole dish. And I always like to top with a little bit of that fresh chopped parsley, some greenery for the scenery. And that's it. You have pearls, black olives, and Orecchiette. All right, time to taste. That's so good. I love that. The right black olives, buttery, rich, really kind of like balance out with that like sweetness from the orange, the savoriness from the little bit of tomato paste, just the right level of spice. I'm telling you, even if you're afraid of spice, that little bit of calabrian chili paste is all you need. Fresh herbs really kind of brighten the whole thing up, and the Orecchiette really capture that olive ragu. Hold it in those little cups. My favorite thing about this olive ragu is really that it doesn't have to be used for pasta. Because of those ripe black olives in there, it makes a great recipe just a little bit better. So much so that you can use it on fish, beef, chicken, you can even put it on toast. In fact, that's what I want everyone to do. Use the hashtag DreamOlive, share all of your recipe ideas and olive creations, and every time that you do, Pearls is going to donate a meal to a family in need. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Chef Joe Sasto. I hope everybody had a great time.